Hey, hi people. Thank you for joining me again today. We are talking about spiritual warfare. One of the aspects about spiritual warfare is the common sense aspect that says pick your fights. You don't have to fight every fight. And in fact, some of the fights that we fight are not really against Satan, they're more against our own ego and our own pride and that sort of thing. But we got to learn which fights to fight and which fights not to. The Apostle Paul, at the end of his life, he declares, I fought the good fight, which means that there's possibly bad fights that he could have fought, but he may have fought, but he shouldn't have fought. And I want to illustrate this to you today because there are many great examples of fights that should never have been fought. And I look at this in the life of David, who's our hero for this week. We see this great giant killer man doing great things, establishing kingdoms, beating up the Philistines and doing a great job. But before he got into doing all this army stuff, he had a little army, about 400 men. These were not the finest soldiers in the land. None of them was highly decorated in the armies around. In fact, they were a pretty useless crowd. But he turned them into a rather good fighting force. And then we see in 1 Samuel chapter 25, an incident that took place that illustrates what I'm trying to say to you. He took his little army and he looked around and he thought, you know what, you guys have done really well. The people we have been protecting over this period of time, they owe us a party. So he sent a message to a guy by the name of Nabal. He wasn't a particularly brilliant man, he was a mean man. And they sent a message to Nabal to say, hey Nabal, we've been looking after you for a long time. Would you mind supplying us with a couple of sheep and a few vegetables so me and my men, we can have a bit of a celebration? Anyway, he sent his guy down there thinking that he would return with the stuff. And all the guy did was return with the message from Nabal, said, get lost. I'm not giving you anything. Why should I? You're not one of my people. I don't need to give you anything. And David was angry. You've got to be so careful to do what you should do, not what you feel you want to do when you're in a place of anger. David said to his men, strap on your swords. We're going to sort this guy Nabal out. We're going to make him pay for his schmuckishness. Anyway, they mounted up. As they were driving down the road, they were suddenly confronted by a lady. And she was standing in the middle of the road and she was waving to say, stop, 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 David. His army was behind him. He was in the front, mad as a snake. And Abigail gave him a great intervention. She said, David, why would you want to go and kill this man? He's a waste of rations anyway. He's got the blood in his hands of many people, and he's not a nice guy. Here's the stuff that you wanted. And she brought all the food that he wanted. And David listened to her story, and he abided by what she said. He said, you know what, I didn't need to fight this fight. This is a fight I don't need to fight. And so he turned his men around, thanked Abigail for her great intervention and great advice, and he returned home to have his party. Now the story went on with Nabal that one day it says that his heart attacked him, which basically means he had a heart attack, and he died a couple of nights later. And David was reminiscing about this, I'm sure, and he thought, you know what, I nearly fought a stupid fight. Abigail's words were, David, you don't want the blood of this silly man, of this fool, because that's what Nabal means. He's a fool. You don't want his blood on your hands, do you? And David didn't go through with what he thought he should. I'm going to tell people, that required courage on Abigail's side and a bit of discretion and a bit of wisdom on David's. You know what, people, as we journey through life, there are always people who are going to freak us out. There's always people that are going to want conflict with us, and the choice is yours as to whether you want to fight those fights. I would urge you to look back over your life and say, what are the fights that were worth fighting? When I fight on behalf of others, then that's pretty good a fight. But when I fight on behalf of myself, or because my own ego, or because I want something that I really want and I want it now, probably not a great fight to fight. So let's learn a good lesson of war. Pick your fights. Pick the fights that you know are principle-based and you know that you can win on the basis of God's principle being more powerful than your preference. I hope this makes sense to you, can keep you out of a heck of a lot of trouble, and I hope you'll find that to be true. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.